What is going on, guys? Welcome back. Commentary for you, Jimmy Smith and Ryan Moody, our MMA show. Here to recap Tyson Fury, Deontay Wilder 2. You know, Jimmy, I love the opportunity of the show. I appreciate the opportunity that we have, the platform you've given me. I think we have a good chemistry. Your fans support us so much. And I get to do a lot of studying for fights that I used to not do. So it's refreshing and fun and in a way kind of, rejuvenating to go back and do some of this. Before we get into the fight, I do just want to mention one thing. It is so nice to see boxing understand where they are. I don't care what Bob Arum has to say. They know they are second fiddle. They know they're the B-side. And they come out and they push a great product. They have great entrances. They sit there and pay homage to the greats in this sport. How nice was it to see Mike Tyson, Evander Holyfield, Lennox Lewis standing together in the ring, getting whatever Penny loves
Penny
this,
agrees.
right?
Penny totally agrees, yes.
Whatever medal they were getting, I don't give a shit. I do think it was awesome that Evander Holyfield was not clapping for Mike Tyson. It was very noticeable. But, if you think back, man, you've got three guys in the ring there, right? Mike Tyson once threatened to eat Lennox Lewis's children, bit Evander Holyfield's ear off, and then now they're all there together before one of the biggest fights we're going to see in the last 10 years. It really was done about as proper as you could do it. No pun intended, because somehow, some way, Proper 12 was in the middle of that fucking mat, and I could not believe it.
Yeah, I was on the ring ropes, too, if I remember correctly. Yeah, that was interesting. Look, when boxing does it big, it does it very, very well. And that's what we got reminded of in this fight. When especially heavyweight boxing, when it really pulls out all the stops, it is crossover in a way that MMA can be, but we all grew up with boxing, right? There's a certain tradition to this kind of thing that we all get reminded of when boxing really pulls out all the stops. And that certainly happened on Saturday.
So here's the deal. Our shows are here. Like, they're there. Before, during, after. You can go listen to them. When we're right, we're right. When we're wrong. Usually it's somewhere in between. I think it's really interesting that when I went back and revisited the way people took our approach to the fight, first of all, I couldn't believe how many people were taking Wilder. I just didn't see this going any other way than Fury's way, apart from that big knockout hit. But needless to say, I was still a little bit surprised about how this played out. I want to say that Deontay Wilder is an incredible athlete, first and foremost. I know there's a lot of people, it's easy to pile on the guy right now, but listen, he is such an athlete that he beat gifted boxers. And I think what we saw was what happens when an athlete fights a boxer. Fury kept his camps closed, could have made adjustments, could have worked on fundamentals. I just don't think Deontay Wilder has those fundamentals. And that's not a knock on him at all. I know it sounds like that, but when push comes to shove, when the fire is being stoked, his muscle memory just isn't there. He hasn't boxed for years and years and years to gain that muscle memory. Whether he had a ruptured eardrum or not, his body, you could tell, his physical being could not take over the fight. His footwork suffered. His punches become reaching. It was just so much of a contrast from what we've seen. I went back, if you go listen to the preview, I talked about the way he was stepping inside to kind of draw Ortiz in. He stopped doing that. He tried to do it to Tyson Fury, but he would pick his foot up and he'd put it right back down. So he was like pattering his foot all of a sudden, and you could just tell, he hasn't boxed for, his adolescent years. He hasn't come up through boxing, and just some of that natural instinct isn't there. And while his talent and strength can get him through, it's not always going to get him through.
You know what made me think of? I got to do a show called Made that was on like CMT at the time. And it's when they took somebody who wanted to be, it's called Made because you wanted to be something like, I want to be a rapper. I want to be this. I want to be that. And they would take these people and put them with a professional. And you had very little time. I think it was like, in my case, maybe a month. And I had to take this housewife and make her an MMA fighter. She had no experience. She had never done anything. She wanted to be an MMA fighter. And we're like, okay. And I got her ready for a real, actual amateur fight. And I had, once again, a little over a month, maybe 5 weeks. And all you can do at that point is, I remember I put her through this workout and I had to identify what she was good at and go, okay, we're going to do that. I can't teach you, I can't make you a blue belt in 5 weeks. I can't make you a boxer in 5 weeks. She had a good right hand. She had naturally pretty good defense. She was strong. And I said, okay, we're going to do that. All she knew how to do was basically throw the right hand, decent combination, and move forward. I taught her how to sprawl, and I taught her how to get up out of bad positions. That was all I taught her in 5 weeks. That's kind of what, and the show never aired. That's why you don't know what I'm talking about. Is the series got canceled right before our show was going to air. It was supposed to be the season finale, and it didn't happen. So it reminded me of that, where it's like Tyson Fury started boxing at 10. Deontay Wilder started at 20. So 10 years earlier, Tyson Fury was building up all his fundamentals and learning how to jab and move and throw combinations, all stuff. Deontay Wilder starting at 20, you get good at certain things. You have a good right hand, you have a good range, you're strong, whatever, and you build on that. You just don't get the toolkit that someone who started when they were before puberty is going to develop. You're not going to ever get that. You can play catch up. You can get good at certain things, like Deontay Wilder, once again, powerful right hand, but you're not going to be able to do what somebody's been doing it their whole life can do. And we saw that on Saturday, that Deontay Wilder could do certain things, but not a whole lot. Fury could do a lot more, and it showed.
Okay, I've got some questions at this point, and I don't even refer to the fight. Are you telling me that you trained Alice Yager?
Who? Oh, that housewife lady?
Yeah, from the soccer. Yes, the soccer mom that went to Bellator. Because
no, that had nothing to do with that. No,
I was making a connection there.
I had nothing to do with that. No, I trained a housewife for the show. Like, I didn't train a housewife for a fight, and like out of the blue. Like, this was a TV show that did this, and they did it with a lot of different disciplines. And mine just they needed an MMA person, so I did it. I was the coach, and she won the fight. She kicked her ass, actually. Thank you.
Who did she beat?
You're welcome. Some other local amateur fighter in Texas. Like, it was real legit, weighed in. The girl was from some other team and the whole deal. We did a full weight cut and everything. Yeah. Knocked her out in first round.
How'd you like to be that other girl, right? Like, you've probably done this for a while, right? You've built up your little amateur record and you're sitting there, and then all of a sudden you stare across the ring and you've got this soccer mom, but beside her is Jimmy fucking Smith. And you just know you're screwed.
Writer. She was like a religious writer.
This
really,
show,
like, she wrote religious books. Yeah, that was it.
This show has to be somewhere.
It is somewhere. I don't know how you'd find it now, but it was a CMT made. It's called Made, and it used to be on MTV, and then it went to CMT, and then we filmed it. We were going to be the last episode of that season because they thought it was the best one, and then partway through the season, the show got canceled, so it never aired anymore.
And they never gave
Jessica
you a
Aguilar.
copy.
I never got a copy. I think I saw it at some point, but they never gave me a copy of it. Yeah, me and Jessica Aguilar trained her. Jag was a friend of mine. She was fighting in Bellator at the time, and I said, "Hey, you've got it," because she's a woman, so they were like, "Hey, is there a female coach that can help out?" And I was like, "Yeah, Jessica Aguilar can help out." And we trained her, and we were in her corner, and she did it, man. She drilled this. She knocked her down, got full mount, unloaded on her, and they stopped the fight. Yeah.
So you're saying she retired undefeated?
Dude, the promoter said, "Do you want to fight again? Like, seriously, like, I'll book you another fight." And she's like, "Nope, I'm retiring undefeated, man. I'm out of here." She had 2 or 3 kids. It was a mission, man. It was a mission. It really was. She didn't know anything. And so we had to, start from scratch and go, all right, what, it was pretty much me in the beginning. And then I had to do some Bellator shows. I was working Bellator at the time. So I kind of handed her off to Jag and this other team. And then I came back. So I did like 3 or 4 weeks with her. And it was, here's what she's good at. Let's develop that and do what I can. And I remember right before the final fight, the producer, they were shooting this whole thing. So I lived, in Texas for a while doing it. And the producer goes, "Man, it looks like she's in good shape. She could really win this thing." And I said, yeah, if the girl angles and kicks, she's screwed. I didn't have time to teach her how to deal with that. You know, it was like she had a good right hand. She could knock you down. I taught her defense. We worked a lot on certain things. But if the girl had known a foot lock, I didn't have time to teach her how to get out of that stuff. I could only teach her like really, really, really basic fundamental stuff. I got freaking 5 weeks. So it was like, if she gets out of the box at all, she just doesn't have the toolkit to do anything about it. You know, that's what worried me, but it ended up being plenty. She, she won and it was fun. It was a cool experience.
If you came here for a post-fight breakdown, I am completely sorry.
Yeah, it's, you know, I know you went off the rails a little bit, but yeah, that's what happened.
Yeah, we don't plan these things at all. So
you were surprised by that whole thing, yeah.
Yeah, genuine questions. So I guess to veer back into the lane of boxing, we don't often see coaches throw in the towel. It's funny if you go back and listen. We basically said the only way that we could see, you know, the most unrealistic way we saw this fight ending is how it ended. I mean, Tyson just continued to drive forward. You could genuinely tell, and the turning point to me, pretty much the whole fight was the turning point. You could tell there was a moment where he didn't fear Wilder's power anymore, and he knew that he could just wield him. I know there's been a lot of discussion about throwing in the towel and letting him go out on a shield, and I just want to take a minute to really say this was the best decision for everyone involved. This was getting unfun to watch. Okay, I don't want to see somebody take unnecessary damage repeatedly, and that's what was happening. The other side of this is, if you let Wilder completely go down on his shield, in my opinion, and we talked about this as well, you really, really, really hurt. You hurt the third fight if it gets exercised here. I don't know that it will, but if it did, if you have a, you know, really cut and dry finish, then I think that puts a little bit different perspective on it than what you have now, where Wilder can technically come out and say, hey, I wanted to go out on my shield. I didn't expect them throwing the towel. I had some personal things going on. He obviously, I believe in my heart, had like a ruptured eardrum or something. His balance was off too. It was just not his night. You could tell from the moment he came out. You know, some guys have their nights and some guys don't have their nights. And I think this might have really been one of those things where it was Tyson's night and it wasn't Wilder's night. And they just meshed in the worst way possible.
It was also, and I don't want to say Deontay Wilder was unmasked. We knew he wasn't a great boxer. We knew he couldn't do a lot of things well. And when we broke this down, one of the things I said is, look, if Deontay Wilder doesn't land the right hand, Fury's going to win. Fury really only has to worry about one thing. It really seemed as though against a guy that was big, against a guy who was more aggressive than he was in the first fight, that's a huge difference. Fury outboxed him in the first fight, but he wasn't this aggressive. He's a little more passive with his boxing. When he stepped forward and bullied the bully, right, got in the physical guy's face, kind of pushed him around a little bit, was the aggressor, stepped in at the right time. Wilder just didn't have an answer for that. We just saw that he was just kind of befuddled and really didn't know what to do. And I completely agree with you with Mark Breland throwing in the towel really helped everybody. That final combination when Breland throws in the towel wasn't that devastating or vicious, in my opinion. It was just Breland could see the way this was going, and that every round this guy gets beat takes a little bit more shine off of him. And we want something left for his next fight. Right? So I think it was a smart decision. I think it was the proper decision. The Fury was owning him throughout this fight. I didn't see it going any other way except a more vicious knockout later. I think Breland did the right thing, and it allows everybody to come out with you could say a more dignity. You know, as you said, that Deontay Wilder can come out and say, "Oh, I wanted to, but I couldn't," and all this stuff, and he can maybe give us some hope that another fight would work out differently. But the simple fact is, Fury was the superior boxer, and I tweeted the night of the fight, it was the most awkward fight I'd ever seen at the elite level. And a lot of people saw that as like some kind of knock on Wilder. No, it was just Fury has an awkward style. And then Wilder not being able to use the right hand at all, everybody was off balance all the time. There was a lot of clinching, a lot of pushing, a lot of herky-jerky kind of punches. It was one of the weirdest fights. As dominant as it was for Tyson Fury, it's one of the weirdest fights I'd ever seen at the championship level.
Yeah, I agree with you 110%. I mean, this is, Deontay Wilder's career. Whether he wants to come back and fight Tyson for a third time, there's a massive payday there. If he loses, it very well could be his final payday. But the question is, how is he going to rebuild from this? We don't see people rebuild at the elite level. Yes, you could say, Tyson Fury was a rebuild personally, emotionally, mentally. He didn't rebuild as a boxer. In this situation with what we just saw, what does Deontay Wilder need to do in his game to confidently beat Tyson Fury? It's not going to be done in 1 month, 6 months, 9 months. I mean, he will always be able to beat him with the power. I would argue that Wilder's power will last longer than Fury's movement ever will. But at the end of the day, I'm not convinced that Deontay Wilder has the time to build upon his base to get into a position to fundamentally beat Tyson Fury. And the comment section of the last video went ablaze about us talking about fundamental boxing. But to me, there was a lot of fundamental boxing holes that we saw here. And sure, when you watch it, it was a visual beating that again, I don't like seeing. But, to that point, there's a lot of little things in this fight that happened that are never going to get talked about, like the point deduction the Fury had versus the fact that I thought Wilder hit Fury later, and it was never called. There's so many little things that really could have played into drama and really could have built storylines. But the end result is this was such a one-sided fight, none of those things even became relevant.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really true. It's really true. But there's also on the other side, there's a lot of like, well, Wilder's, Deontay Wilder's some kind of bum now, or, you don't get to where he was without, some ability. Not a complete boxer for sure. Very hard puncher, great right hand, resilient, and all those things. Where does he go from here? The biggest money fight would be another fight with Fury. And he's got to come up with a reason to make us believe that, if his eardrum was ruptured or something like that. He said he was dealing with a lot of stuff outside of the ring. I don't know if that's true, but it wouldn't surprise me if they play that up just to get the public convinced that maybe something else could happen. The problem is that the elite level heavyweight boxing right now, there are not a lot of gimmies. There are not a lot of, keep you busy kind of fights for Deontay Wilder. I don't know if he could, step down a little bit, I guess. But, how many more does he have left in him anyway? Don't you want to maybe have the Fury fight while it's still a comparatively big fight? Of course, for Fury, it's Anthony Joshua is the big fight. Anthony Joshua has a couple of mandatories in front of him. We don't always get the fight we really want in boxing, unfortunately. But the big decision time for Deontay Wilder, big decisions. A lot of history has told us that big punchers who lose their aura of invincibility typically don't do well. And we'll see if that's the case for Deontay Wilder, but he's got some choices to make.
Yeah, I mean, for those that think that this was, Wilder's big exposure fight, right? Where, like you said, I read some particularly cruel comments from people that just must not be very well versed in this sport, which, listen, some people said we weren't giving that preview. However, I actually mentioned that Luis Ortiz fight for Wilder was kind of like a warm-up fight. And, of course, people are like, well, how can you say that about, an Olympian? How can you say that about a world champion? Well, Deontay Wilder was that guy. Deontay Wilder came into that fight having already beaten Ortiz. Did anyone really think that something different was going to happen 2 years later? I sure didn't. I thought the expectation was exactly what happened, that Wilder was going to come in, knock Ortiz out. But now I think when Wilder goes out, if he is going to fight other opponents, we're going to look for something different. I'm going to look for improved footwork. I'm going to look for some of the fundamentals, dealing with southpaws, dealing with jabs, that before I could overlook. You can go back and you can watch, you really can't watch the Brazil fight is only like 3 minutes, but you can go back and look at things that gave him problems and he still gets a knockout. And as long as he gets a knockout, it's okay. It doesn't matter. But to me, I think, like you said, there's a lot of things that have to be considered here, because if you rack this up a third time, you're guaranteed eyes. You're guaranteed that big payday. But if you lose this one like you lost the third, if you lose the third one like you lost the second one, you're kind of getting into uncharted territory where, are people going to continue to want to watch you fight? And, what are you doing to your body? I mean, at the end of the day, corners don't throw in towels out often. As we mentioned before, I really think this is a commendable moment. There's a lot of bravery it takes to throw in a towel. I've never had to do it. I don't know that you have been in positions to do it, and I haven't, because you always wonder what that relationship's going to be like when the person walks back over, just like Wilder did, and say, why the fuck did you do that? So it really was the saving grace of this fight going forward, I think.
It was, but it's murky as to what happens next for Deontay Wilder. The best thing for Fury is the Anthony Joshua fight. We don't know if that'll happen. It's Wilder's future that's really clouded. As you said, it's a big money fight against Fury, but if you lose that, not a lot of places to go. Not for the big money, not for the big lights, not that will add to your legacy. People can almost always just fight for money and show up for a paycheck. The elite of the elite don't want to do that. They want to be number one. When that isn't possible anymore, then you have tough decisions. Because nobody wants to see a boxer showing up for a check.
Agreed. Yeah, and I think if nothing else, the other side of that is we definitively know beyond the shadow of a doubt who number one in heavyweight boxing is right now. And I think at the end of the day, as we mentioned before, during, and after, boxing is in the best position it's been in 20 years. And it's because of events like this. It's because of characters like Tyson Fury. I mean, the build up to this thing was just amazing. I mean, to look at the pre-show in a way where they're almost mocking each other, right? It was just kind of one of those things where you're like, man, you just don't always see this. You don't see these really larger than life figures, regardless of what happens in the ring. Both of them have cemented themselves incredible legacies in boxing. I would love to see them fight again, but at the same time, I don't want to watch uncompetitive fights, and I don't want to see people get beat up for no reason, because at the other end of the day, I mean, in boxing, we know probably more than any other sport what the bad side of boxing looks like when somebody's been through those wars and they start to get 50, 60, 70. I don't want to see that anymore.
Exactly. The price is just too high. It's too high. A basketball player on the court past his prime will just not score a lot of points. A boxer's going to get hurt. And, we accept that as a possibility anytime somebody fights, but we just don't want to see them in the autumn of their career and their lives suffer. And a fighter takes too many, they suffer. And I don't think anybody wants to see that.
I would agree completely. So with that said, we appreciate you guys listening to the most part this recap, and literally a little sprinkling of Jimmy Smith and the TV show Made. And hopefully, since the comment section was so stern in their thoughts last time, someone can go find the Jimmy Smith Made episode, and we can all watch that together. With that said, we appreciate you guys checking this out, and we will be back very shortly with more commentary.